Welcome to the Machines and Molecules podcast. Machines and Molecules hosts guests that have backgrounds in biochemistry, chemistry, and machine learning. And our guest today is Tina Klüver. Hi, Tina.
Hey, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Everything's good. It's a Friday morning.
Yes, great. So, have you brought a third M word because it's machines, molecules, and
Yeah,
what?
I actually thought about that. Wasn't easy. There was so much a choice. Yeah, like I thought about the mighty maybe or the marvelous, but then I ended up with motivation because I think that motivation is really one of the words that describes a lot of my of my life and how I decided and what my decision actually came out. And I think a lot of my things and actions that I did in the last years were also guided by how enthusiastic I was. And basically, I get enthusiastic quite quickly. And I think that's one of the things that's really a big part of my of my personality.
Yes, that's probably one of the reasons why you do so many different things also, right? Because,
yes, I think this is connected to each other, yeah.
Okay, so because my thought, what you might have chosen would have been mandates, because you talk to politics quite a lot.
That's true.
So maybe to complete the introduction, Tina is one of the few people that are sold as experts in German television and that actually are experts of AI. She's part of the AI Expert Commission for the German government and German parliament. You lead an accelerator for AI companies in Berlin. You founded an AI company a few years back. I don't know how long back.
2014. Yeah, in 2014. Okay. That was the last wave of AI startups, I think. So now we do have the next wave with all the generative AI models. But in 2014, 15, there was already like some specific amount of people founding startups based on AI.
And before that, you did a PhD in natural language processing, is that right?
Correct, yeah, in computational linguistics. I was dealing mostly with chatbots, actually. So my work always was about natural language interaction with machines and about natural language understanding as well, because before we had those generative models that we can see now, it was always this two-step approach, right? The first step was to understand what was actually said or typed, and the second one was to react to that in an appropriate way. And therefore, we did a lot of work on natural language understanding.
How was it for you getting out of academia and into startup land?
Yeah, that was a tough decision, but I was quite sure that I wanted to have that experience. But it took me a while to finally get it managed to start the own business. Since I hadn't had any experience with that so far, almost a year. It took me almost a year, but it was great. Yeah, I wanted that very much. I wanted to have that experience, and I wanted to build my own company based on the research that I did, but also to get the possibility to not just dive very deep, as you do in research, dive very deep into one specific topic and always find the microstructures in insights, but also to build a full product. Yeah? I wanted to build a really usable and meaningful product based on my research, and that was a very strong motivation for me, and I like that very much. I actually think the worlds are very different. So research, academia, and startup ecosystem are super different. But still, there are some similarities because for example, I like very much the international aspect of it. Research also is very international, and it's about exchange all the time. So you exchange with other people engaging in the same field or area a lot. And I feel that there's a common understanding of how to cooperate in the startup scene as well. Maybe it's even stronger. Yeah. So there's this really this attitude of helping out each other that I like a lot.
Yeah, I've another founder, Charlie Cotton of Cambridge. I think he said in academia it's a lot about individual like working, whereas in the startup world it is the team that together creates something.
Yeah, I think that's right. So the actual way to work, the day-to-day work and task is very different, because usually in academia you do have your own field, and then there are some people in the world that you can talk to about this field, but they are not necessarily your neighbors. Yeah, so in the daily life you may be quite isolated, and this is also something that I experience from people that join our teams. So even in my startup, but also now in Kiez, if I have people joining my team that come from academia, usually they mention that one of the biggest wishes and what they're looking for in a new job is to have a team. Yeah. So to work together in a day-to-day base with others and not just on their own.
And how would you describe the differences in the learning experience in the PhD time and startup time? Because I felt it was very different. So I'm interested to hear what your take on it is.
Do you mean your personal experience? Or?
Yes. I thought that both building a startup and doing a PhD are both times of very fast learning.
Yeah.
But it's also quite different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was interested to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah, I think it's I get what you mean. I think there's both are really huge projects. Yeah, a PhD may seem from the outside not so big, but it is. Yeah, and you have to really stick to the topic, and you need a lot of time and resources to spend in that project. So I think in this way they are quite similar. For me personally, it felt quite similar because you always had to keep up. Yeah. So, and even on days where you think, okay, every hope is lost. Yeah. So you still have to carry on. Yeah. Don't give up. And I think that's something that was quite similar from my experience. On the other side, of course, in the startup, building a startup, I had 3 co-founders, and it was very much about engaging with each other and to get together to found the base fundament of what we want to build, the product itself, but also the access to the market and how we want to do our business strategy. Everything was built in cooperation, in conversation, basically. And I was totally different from my PhD because I think the case with the PhD students is usually that you don't have a mentor, even if you have a mentor. And that was true for me too, right? I mean, I had a great mentor, but he was very busy, and it wasn't the case that you could talk about every single minor step, right? You had to come up with decision by yourself. And I think it's a totally different approach in a startup. If you have co-founders, you do it all together. And especially true. When I think back on the first days when we started to think about the product a little bit more concrete, and we had those meetings, whole weeks of meetings in 10 hours of meetings a day, where we just talked about the product and how we want to build it. That was such a great experience. I think it was one of the best things I did in my life.
Yeah, understood. Would you say you've had a big failure in your professional life?
Thousands.
Maybe what's the biggest one you want to share?
What is a failure? Yeah, I mean, it's not easy to define, but I think many things didn't work out. Yeah, so because of this, what I already said, the enthusiasm that I have for many things and that I get quite quickly, I usually do a lot of different things. And when someone approaches me and says, "Hey, I do have a really good idea," the chances are high that I agree, and I also like this idea, and I want to contribute something to that. And since I do so many different things, smaller things and bigger things, I would say like 50% of them don't work. Yeah, so they just come to an end without what you would call a success, right? And during the startup times that we had some very difficult periods of time as well. We started as 4 co-founders, as I already said, and then finally we were 2, right? When we had our exit, we were just 2. And every time a co-founder left, you can imagine that was not an easy thing, right? And if I think about what kind of conversations we had during those times, I would also say, if I could take back some of those, I would do it, right? But in that moment, you are very emotional and things are very at high stake. There's a high stake in that. And yeah, we're just humans, you know? So I think that's very common.
Yes.
Do you have something
so.
like a failure, like a real failure?
Loads, yes. So I think really the PhD time was, many people get what I now call PhD depression, and I probably also had it. You know, you're trying to make experiments work and they don't, and you're alone. You don't have anybody really to help you, so that's a tough time. I would always do it again, but it's a tough thing to go through. Definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when you're alone. And I think that's the case for most of us, right? So that you're not...
Yes.
I've heard about PhD groups as well, yeah? So people that come together during the time they do have their PhD, where they can exchange, not necessarily on the content side, but at least on the process aspects. But I didn't have something like that. So I don't know if there was something available and it just didn't notice. I don't know. Did you have some kind of support there?
Yeah, we supported each other, but it was not... I think you can foster it more as a PhD supervisor, but I also blame the German system where professors become more managers and have to deal with all these Drittmittelanträge to get any money at all. The system is just very different from what I've seen, for example, in France or in the UK, where people can actually do research and they do have time for that because they don't have to care all the time for administrative stuff and for getting money.
Yeah, that's true. If you're a professor, you're very busy with all those administration tasks. And getting the money and getting your people a salary is your first requirement. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So you do a lot of stuff. What excites you the most at the moment about your work?
So currently, I'm actually, I have a big passion again for all the thoughts on AI, artificial intelligence, and consciousness. I'm not per se someone who's into neuro physics or something, but I do have a philosophy degree as well. And my original motivation to go into computational linguistics was actually to find out a little bit more about the human way, how we perceive things and how we understand and how we actually get into knowledge and decisions. And I started that by getting into philosophy first, but I've noticed quite early that this is not the only way to explain things. And then I came across computational linguistics and I was like, hey, maybe I can figure out more about it if I try to enable it in machines. So when I understand how machines can understand human language, maybe I can understand how humans do that too. And then I'd kind of stick with that. But I did a lot of work in my studies and things mostly about consciousness and how we actually understand language and analytical philosophy. And I was really keen on that. And finally I came to the conclusion that maybe machines are so different that it didn't really work out to get some insights from that, but I still love the field, so I stick with that, and I really like the applications and what we can build from artificial intelligence. But lately I also came back because people started talking a lot about the emergent abilities of artificial intelligence generative models, and if there's a consciousness, and there's so many, I would say, like, panic going on about machines becoming consciousness. So I started thinking about that again, and I will be part of a new newspaper that's coming out in July. It's a magazine about human factors and artificial intelligence and how that all interacts. And I'm very keen on that and seeing on that because I think it's really interesting topic. Also, not only about understanding what's going on and perceiving the world, but also about what it really means for us to have those machines interacting with us. Because I think it tells a lot about us as a human species as well, right? A lot of what we now discuss regarding artificial intelligence is actually discussing us. Yeah. So what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be in a society? How do we handle all those different aspects that now get somehow, I would say, like, artificial intelligence brings it somehow to light. Yeah. So we're talking about discrimination because artificial intelligence is able to consolidate our view on discrimination and bias because it makes it visible, it makes it transparent, right? And now we are forced to talk about it. And I find that very interesting, but I'm not so happy that many people now interact with that discussion in a way that they think we just need to forbid artificial intelligence and then we're done.
Yes, it's a bit preposterous. I think it was it's a book, among others, by Daniel Kahneman, who talked about. He's a very strong proponent of automatic decisions or automatic grading systems. He's a Nobel laureate in economics, and he says, well, yes, these systems show bias. Because there's bias in the data.
Exactly.
But the big advantage of it is that now we can see it suddenly. Before, because, the overall average of the society is acting in racist ways, but we don't see it because some people act more racist, other people act less racist. But now you have one single thing, and that is the average of everything that humans have produced. And the average of what humans have produced is racist. So now... it's good. We see it. We can discuss about it. Yes, deal with it, finally. Tell me a bit more about the magazine. Do you have a name already, and how often will it appear? I'm
not 100% sure how much I'm allowed to say already because it's not published yet. But the name of the magazine is going to be Human. And hopefully we can publish it at least monthly, but we will see. Maybe it's quarterly. Yeah, stay tuned.
Very nice.
In July, there's the first one coming. And it's also, it deals with the economics as well, right? So it's not only about pure societal factors, although this can't be differentiated from each other. Yeah, so it all tries to get all the viewpoints in there.
And tell me a bit more about your interaction with politics, because you've been one of the people who has talked to German politicians about AI, explaining to them what it was even before it was a trend. So how did that go, and what do you think are the pain points of policy making for AI?
Yeah, I started working with politics when the German parliament started this working group on artificial intelligence, which is called the Enquête, right? So there are several Enquête groups at the parliament. It's like a special forces group that comes together to really deep dive into one topic. And there have been several of those enquete commissions already dealing with all different kinds of topics. And there was this new one on artificial intelligence, I think in 2018, 17. I would have to check the dates. And it ran for 2 years, and I was one of 20, roughly 20 experts. And there we were mirrored with 20 people from the parliament who were interested in the topic or had already some experience with that. And this group of 40 people, we came together to discuss all the aspects that may be important for the government and the parliament regarding artificial intelligence. And back then, actually, the biggest work of all that we spent was talking about what artificial intelligence actually is. Yeah? And I think that was, or still is, one of the main points, because people tend to overestimate what the technology can do, or they tend to react with panic. Yeah, so it's either magic or it's Terminator. And that was basically our biggest job as the experts in this team, in this group, to really make clear what the pragmatic and realistic viewpoint on artificial intelligence is, right? So what are the real chances and what are the real risks, and nothing like, being totally exorbitant, whatever, doomsday cultures. Yeah. So, and that was the biggest thing that we did. But then after we finally managed that, we also worked on concrete aspects of AI, for example, in what does AI mean for the government? How can they use it? How should they not use it? And what is important about that? And then after that, I have been part of many different teams at the government. I was part of a group at the Ministry of Economics. I was part of a group in the Ministry of Research and Education. And currently I'm part of the Zukunftsrat of the German Chancellor. And I always bring in this aspect, my viewpoint on artificial intelligence, and which is, I would say, really very pragmatic viewpoint. It's a technology, it's an instrument, it comes with risk and with chances, and we just need to check that really without any hysteria. Yeah? So, because if we get too hysteric or worried, then we will lose a lot of, our, I would say, the way we can approach it. Yeah. So if we are too panicky, then we can't approach it in a meaningful way. So, and that's basically a lot of the work that I do, and telling everybody again and again and again how I perceive artificial intelligence as a technology.
So then probably coming back to what you said earlier and also to the panic, would you say that there's no such thing as consciousness in current systems, or does emergent behavior...
Definitely not. Okay. Yes. And also I have to, for everybody who may be super excited about having consciousness in machines, there's no clue at all how those machines and this totally different way of being actually can come up with some consciousness. Yeah, we don't have any clue. And also, and this is especially complicated, even for humans or for animals, we don't have any way to measure consciousness. Yeah, so it's really hard. People are doing a lot of research on that, and there are some approaches that try to measure consciousness. So there's a very interesting theory that I think from medicine, from two Italian researchers. It's called ZAP and ZIP. I can definitely recommend to check it out. It's super interesting. So they have developed a method to actually measure how much brain activity is going on. And they found out that if you have very, brain activity that is where not much entropy shows up, is most probably not very conscious. And they can now, for people in a coma, for example, they can have an estimation of how much consciousnness is in this person. So how conscious is this person? They're this lock-in patients, and they try to find out how probable it is that those people are actually listening to what you're saying and conscious in a way. So I think that's super interesting, but those are also methods that apply only to biological systems. So we can't put zap and zip on a computer. Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah. So I think we don't have any chance of finding out how conscious somebody or a system is. And that, of course, makes it even more complex. Yeah. So, and additionally, I can imagine, and people who are dealing with that kind of stuff also say that all the times, that a machine consciousness could be so different from a human consciousness that we don't recognize or notice it anyway. So, yeah, that's a big topic.
Yeah. So you're not of the opinion of Jeff Hinton that it's a bigger danger than climate change?
Definitely not. I would say climate change is a real danger. I know some more where I would say, hey, people, look at that. Yeah. What about pesticides? Yeah? I think that's a real threat to nature and to us. But a text generating machine, sorry, I can't find any comparison in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking yesterday that maybe, as I get older, I feel colder all the time. So maybe climate change is good for people that have that are a bit progressed in their age. But yes, I see it as the bigger danger as well. Do you think there's other typical misconceptions that people have about what machines can do, like, for example, that all the jobs will be gone, or
Well, I would say for artificial intelligence, there are some concrete things that we can expect. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure, and everybody I think who's dealing with AI would say that our way of working will change. And most probably that means that not every job will be the same in 1 year or in the next. And in total, people are sure, most experts are sure about that. In total, we will not lose jobs, but we may lose some activities or actions involved in jobs that we do have now, because they can be taken over by machines. And of course, the question in those kinds of changes, this is not the first time we have a change like this, right? Always in times of change like this, I think it's important that all the people who have been or who are in kind of those jobs who may change get the ability to adapt to that change. And if they don't manage to adapt to that change, we need to open up different possibilities and options for them. But I think of course it's a task. It's a task for our society. But I'm sure we will manage. We have managed before. So it would be a lie to say, I don't expect anything to change. Yeah? So because of artificial intelligence, I don't think that's true. Things will change, especially in the work. The work of the future will be different. And it doesn't mean that from now to tomorrow, a lot of jobs will not be necessary anymore, but it's more like a change over the years. And, we all have our chance to adapt to that. Me too, by the way. And you maybe as well, right? So because I do a lot of text work, and I do a lot of presentations, and I'm pretty sure things will change for that. I will use different instruments and will use different software, new software that supports my work, where I need to learn those possibilities as well. And we'll see. This will at least expect from us to be flexible and to learn those new possibilities.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Work has changed, especially knowledge work has changed a lot in the last year, I would say, especially programming. Like coding is very different, much more efficient, I would say, than it was just a year ago.
True, and I expect especially this job, programmers, and this will undergo a big change. And maybe if those machines get even better in code completion and they can write whole parts of code and they are meaningful at working, then everybody can become a programmer, right? I had a conversation yesterday with a journalist and she was like, oh my God, everybody can program everything then. This is a threat. I mean, people can see a threat everywhere, but I was like, I think it's a chance, yeah? So, I mean, for now, we do have the situation that companies and institutions are looking for programmers like crazy, yeah? So they can't find the people, and because there are not enough people who can program. And if we have the chance to come up with software all by ourselves, I think that's it's a super big chance. Yeah, there's a lot of potential in that. But on the other hand, of course, there are programmers, and they will not be unmeaningful. Yeah, so we're gonna need them anyway, because if you want to build a real like software architecture or something, I can't see that those systems are able to do that for the next 12 or for 24 months. Yeah, so I think this will still be needed a lot. Yeah? So maybe they can program a part of it, and then you still have to, as an architect, you have to combine that all together, the software.
Yeah, humans become more of architects rather than bricklayers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's. I think that's a pretty accurate prediction, pretty safe prediction to make. Also.
Yes. Now that we all said, hey, there's in I think the last 2 years we said that we don't need anybody driving a bus anymore in the next years. Yeah. So and it turned out to be totally wrong.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's actually still a very complex task to drive a bus, and it's a complex task to clean a window. Seems to be even more complex for this kind of software than filling out an Excel sheet, right?
Yeah.
So you never know.
Yes, true. Thank you very much, Tina, for
You're
being
welcome.
a guest on
Thanks a lot
Machines
for
and
inviting
Molecules.
me.
Yes, always happy to chat with you, and see you around at AI Campus.
See you too. Good luck.
Bye.
Ciao.